most people find out too late. They spend their 20s thinking retirement is someone else's problem, their 30s trying to catch up, their 40s realizing they are further behind than they thought, and their 50s staring at a number that is nowhere near where it needs to be. And the worst part is not the number itself. It is that nobody ever showed them the scorecard. Nobody handed them a clear target for each decade. Nobody said by this age you should have this much, built this way, using these specific moves. So they improvised. And improvising with your financial future is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. Today that changes. If nobody ever gave you a clear wealth target for your age, smash that like button right now. Because this is the scorecard most people never see until it is too late. My name is Alex, and I break down how people build or lose wealth, the data, the psychology, and the specific decisions that separate people who hit financial milestones from people who spend their lives wondering why they missed them. And today I am walking you through the exact money targets you should be hitting at every age, what the data says the average person has, what you should actually be aiming for, and the specific moves that get you there. 5 age brackets, clear targets, honest breakdown. Let's get into it. Here is the uncomfortable truth about wealth in America. The average net worth figures most people see are completely misleading. Think about this. Imagine 10 people sitting in a room. 9 of them have almost nothing. One of them has $10 million. The average net worth of that room sounds impressive. But 9 out of 10 people in that room are broke. That is exactly what happens with wealth statistics. According to Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances data, the top 10% of Americans hold approximately 70% of all wealth. The top 50% hold 98%, which means the bottom 50% of Americans share just 2% of the total wealth in the country. When you see the average net worth for any age group, that number is being pulled dramatically upward by a small number of very wealthy people at the top. The median, the number that represents the actual middle person, tells a completely different story, and that story should concern every person watching this, because most people are not just slightly behind, they are decades behind. And the gap between where they are and where they need to be grows larger every year they do not have a clear target. People do not make financial decisions logically, they make them emotionally. They spend based on how they feel today. They save based on what is left over. They invest when they get around to it. And without a clear external target, a scorecard, the emotional decisions always win. These 5 age brackets are that scorecard. AG Bracket 1. Your rotation years, 18 to 24. Let me be honest about where most people in this age group actually are. According to Federal Reserve Consumer Finance data, the median net worth of someone between 18 and 24 years old is approximately $8,000. Not $80,000. Not $800,000. $8,000. And for many people in this bracket, that number is negative because of debt. Show young person with student debt visual. But here is what most people in this age group do not understand. The decisions you make between 18 and 24 are not just affecting your finances right now. They are setting the trajectory for every decade that follows. Think about 2 seeds planted in different soil. One goes into rich, fertile ground with the right nutrients. One goes into dry, rocky ground with nothing to support it. Both seeds look identical at the start. But 10 years later, the environment they were planted in determines everything about where they ended up. Your financial habits between 18 and 24 are the soil for everything that follows. The target for this bracket is building a net worth of at least $20,000 before you turn 25. Not through magic. Through 4 specific foundation moves practiced simultaneously. The first is building a starter emergency fund of $1,000 to $2,000 in a completely separate account. Not to invest, not to spend, just to absorb the unexpected without reaching for debt. The second is avoiding high-interest consumer debt entirely. Student loans for genuinely valuable qualifications are a separate conversation. But credit card debt, buy now, pay later balances, and high-interest personal loans at this age are wealth destroyers that compound against you for years. The third is opening a brokerage account and starting to invest, even $50 a month. At 20 years old, investing $100 a month at a 10% average annual return for 40 years produces approximately $637,000. The same $100 a month starting at 30 produces approximately $226,000. The 10-year head start is worth over $400,000. The fourth is investing in your own earning capacity. The skill you build between 18 and 24 directly determines how much you can earn from 25 onwards. Every dollar spent on a genuinely marketable skill at this age has a higher return than almost any investment you will ever make. I know what you are thinking. Alex, I am 22 and barely covering rent. How am I supposed to build a $20,000 net worth? Here is the answer. The target is not about the number today. It is about the trajectory. Start the emergency fund at $25 a month. Open the brokerage account with $10. Build the habit. The amount compounds from the habit, not the other way around. A.G. Brock 2, Your Acceleration Years, 25 to 29. Here is something that should genuinely surprise you. The median net worth of a 25 to 29-year-old in America, according to Federal Reserve data, is approximately $7,500. That is actually lower than the 18 to 24 bracket. Lower. Why does net worth drop between the early 20s and late 20s? Because this is when lifestyle inflation arrives at full force. First real salary, first apartment alone, first new car payment, first credit card with a real limit, first round of vacations with disposable income. The income goes up, the spending goes up faster, and the net worth, which should be accelerating, actually falls. This is called the lifestyle inflation trap, and it swallows most people whole between 25 and 29 without them ever realizing it happened. The target for this bracket is a net worth of $60,000 by the time you turn 30. Here is how that becomes achievable. The first priority is eliminating all high-interest debt completely. Every dollar paying 20% credit card interest is a dollar that should be building your net worth instead. On $5,000 in credit card debt at 20% annually, you are paying $1,000 a year just in interest. Redirected into investments at 10% return over 10 years, that $1,000 per year becomes approximately $1,700. The second priority is investing 10 to 15% of your income consistently. At a $55,000 annual salary, 10% is $458 a month. At 10% average annual return over 35 years, that $458 a month becomes approximately $1.7 million. The third priority is building a credit score above 750. Not because credit scores are glamorous, because a strong credit score is the key that unlocks the leverage, mortgages, investment financing, business credit, that dramatically accelerates wealth building in your 30s and 40s. And here is the critical mindset shift for this bracket. The fatal error of the late 20s is focusing too much on saving and not enough on earning. You can save your way to wealth on a high income. You cannot save your way to wealth on a low one fast enough to matter. The most important financial move of your late 20s is aggressively increasing your income through skill development, negotiation, side income, or business building. Every $10,000 increase in annual income invested consistently at 10% over 30 years adds approximately $1.9 million to your retirement wealth. That is not a savings problem. That is an income problem with a very specific mathematical solution. Let us slow down for a second. Bracket 1, ages 18 to 24. Target net worth $20,000. 4 foundation moves simultaneously. Emergency fund. 0 consumer debt. Start investing. Build earning capacity. The habits you build here determine every decade that follows. Bracket 2, ages 25 to 29. Target net worth $60,000. Eliminate all high-interest debt. Invest 10 to 15% consistently. Build your credit score above 750. And aggressively increase your income, because this is where the wealth gap opens or closes permanently. 3 more brackets to go. And this is where the numbers get significantly larger. AG Bracket 3, Your Building Years, the 30s. Here is where the wealth gap between people who started early and people who did not becomes impossible to ignore. Federal Reserve data shows the average net worth of someone in their 30s is approximately $198,000. But the median, the actual middle person, is only around $45,000. That $153,000 gap between average and median represents the compounding head start that early financial habits produce. The target for your 30s is a net worth of $240,000 by the time you turn 40. Here is how that number is built. The first priority is buying your primary home. Not because a primary home is a great investment on its own, but because the discipline of a mortgage payment, combined with forced equity accumulation and protection against rent inflation, produces a significant net worth contribution over a decade that renting cannot replicate in most markets. The second priority is maximizing tax-advantaged accounts. In the U.S., that means maxing your 401k and Roth IRA contributions every year. In 2026, the combined contribution limit for both is approximately $30,000 annually. Let me make that real. If you invest $30,000 per year in tax-advantaged accounts starting at 30 at a 10% average annual return, by age 60 that becomes approximately $5.4 million. Completely or largely tax-free depending on the account type. The tax savings alone on that investment over 30 years, assuming a 22% tax rate, represent over $1.1 million in additional wealth that you keep instead of sending to the government. The third priority is increasing your investment rate to 20% of income. Your 30s are typically your first decade of genuinely meaningful income. Lifestyle pressures also increase. Family, mortgage, children. The people who keep their investment rate at 20% through these pressures are the ones who hit the 40s targets. The ones who let lifestyle consume the raises are the ones staring at a shortfall they cannot explain. AG Bracket 4, your golden earning years. The 40s. The 40s are the decade most financial experts agree matters more than any other. Your income is typically at or near its peak. Your investments have had time to compound. Your lifestyle costs, while real, are largely established. Federal Reserve data shows average net worth in the 40s at approximately $692,000. Median is $145,000. Show wealth acceleration visual. Compound curve steepening. The target for your 40s is breaking $830,000 in net worth by the time you turn 50. Here is what drives that number. The first priority is applying the 25x rule as your retirement benchmark. Multiply your desired annual retirement income by 25. If you want $80,000 a year in retirement, your target investment portfolio is $2 million. The 4% safe withdrawal rate research shows this sustains indefinitely without running out. If you are 45 and your portfolio is $400,000, at 10% return with $2,000 monthly contributions, you reach $2 million in approximately 15 years. By 60, still fully achievable. If you have not started, the math changes significantly, but it is never too late to change the trajectory. The second priority is paying off your primary mortgage. I know the mathematical argument for keeping a low-interest mortgage and investing the difference. It is valid in pure return terms. But the psychological value of owning your home outright, removing the largest monthly obligation from your financial picture, gives you flexibility and peace of mind in retirement that the pure math misses. The third priority is increasing your investment rate to 30% of income. Your 40s represent the final decade of serious accumulation before the retirement window approaches. Every additional dollar invested at this stage has 15 to 20 years of compounding ahead of it. At $120,000 annual income, 30% is $3,000 per month invested. At 10% return over 15 years, that becomes approximately $1.24 million from this decade alone. AG Bracket 5. Your harvest years, 50 plus. Federal Reserve data shows the average net worth of someone in their 50s at approximately $1,031,000. Median is $182,000. That median tells a devastating story. Half of all Americans entering their 50s, the decade before most retirement timelines, have less than $182,000 in total net worth. On a 4% withdrawal rate, $182,000 produces $7,280 per year, not per month, per year. The target for this bracket is a net worth above $1.2 million and a liquid investment portfolio approaching the 25x multiple of your desired annual income. Here is what this decade requires. The first priority is clearing all remaining debt completely. Good debt that built wealth in earlier decades becomes a burden when your income shifts from earned to invested. Every monthly payment in retirement reduces the freedom that all those decades of work were supposed to produce. The second priority is having at least 25 times your annual expenses in liquid invested assets. If you spend $60,000 per year, you need $1.5 million in your investment portfolio. If you are not there, the 50s are the last realistic decade to close the gap through aggressive contribution combined with compounding. The third priority is establishing a will and reviewing your estate plan. Every person who has spent decades building wealth without a will has handed control of that wealth's distribution to a government process they cannot influence. This is not a morbid conversation. It is a practical one. The wealth you spent decades building deserves the same intentionality in how it passes forward as it required to create. Let us lock this in. Ages 18 to 24. Target net worth $20,000. Emergency fund. Zero consumer debt. Start investing immediately. Build earning capacity. The foundation determines everything. Ages 25 to 29. Target net worth $60,000. Eliminate all high-interest debt. Invest 10 to 15% consistently. Build credit above 750. And aggressively grow your income. This is the decade that opens or closes the wealth gap permanently. The 30s. Target net worth $240,000. Buy your home. Maximize tax-advantaged accounts. Invest 20% of income through every lifestyle change that arrives. The 40s. Target net worth $830,000. Apply the 25x retirement benchmark. Pay off the mortgage. Push investment rate to 30%. The final serious accumulation decade. 50 plus. Target net worth $1.2 million and growing. Clear all debt. Hit 25's annual expenses in liquid investments. Establish your estate plan. Let the decades of compounding do what they were always going to do. Most people will spend their entire lives improvising with the most important scoreboard they have. No targets, no milestones. No clear picture of where they are relative to where they need to be. This video is the scorecard. The targets exist. The math is clear. And the compounding works for anyone who starts, regardless of age, and stays consistent. But it only works if you start. The difference between being stuck and being free is not income. It is behavior repeated quietly over time.